Okay,
sorry, we had technical difficulties there. The conference room was on mute. Ms. Herbert, I see you came in. Thank you. We just had a vote to adopt the agenda. How do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have adopted the agenda, and the next item, number 3, is a report from the Midlands Transit Riders Association. Glad to have Mr. Durst here in person.
Yeah, this is a red letter day. I'm here in person after 2 years. I wanted to reiterate some things that we've covered over the past couple of months, but I think it bears repeating in relation to the proposed change of routes that are going to be moved elsewhere. In Route 101, which is going to be planned to not go into town, anybody who works in hospitality at USC or at the hospital will have to take 2 to 3 buses. On the 801, in order to get to town, you'll have to take 2 buses to town by taking either the 401 or the 501. The 401 replaces the 801 to town along Greystone and 126. So the 401 will need bigger buses to accommodate riders from the 2 busiest routes, which are 101 and 801. Zoo tourists will have to take 2 buses to get to the zoo, which would be 401 and 84, unless they want to walk from Stonebridge across the 126 bridge. And I've done that, and it's not fun. If the Comet Central closes, right now I see no need for it, because right now any downtown buses will move to Assembly Street, and there'll just be a bus stop on Sumter and Laurel for some of the buses going out of town. And in relation to that, the Columbia as a capital city really needs to support bus riders, and kind of bothers me that I'm hearing reports of Columbia doesn't want certain people to be downtown. I don't understand that. Back when Bob Coble was mayor, we got him to put up signs. If you've ever been along Assembly Street from Taylor down to Blossom, there are signs at the intersections that say pedestrians have right of way in the crosswalk with a light. Those signs are up there, except for the one at the intersection of Taylor and Assembly. So if there's going to be a super stop at Assembly and Blanding, there really needs to be a pedestrian sign there, because I've almost been killed a couple of times. Anyone working at Prisma or downtown hotels will have to walk further to get to work from Assembly. Anyone living downtown and wants to shop at Food Line on Broad River, they'll have to take 2 buses instead of 1. Anyone from Broad River or North Main wanting to shop at 5 Points will have to take 3 buses instead of 2. And the same with students at Midlands Tech Rosewood. And just parenthetically, on Sunday, I was going downtown on the 801, and a woman got off there. Well, actually 3 people did, at the Bojangles on Elmwood. This woman was going to work at Lizard's Thicket. One was going to Bojangles to work, and the other one was going to do construction. And all of those folks would have to take 2 buses now instead of 1. So that's basically my report, and I thank y'all for listening.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Burgess.
Now, this information that he has, I don't know where you're getting that information from. I have no knowledge of what you just said. So I'm just wondering where this information is coming from.
I got it from the proposed route changes that were published in
Now,
a board packet.
I
about
saw
2
that
months ago.
email of April 4th, but that didn't go to the board, and nothing you said has been board approved.
I am aware of that.
Right. So I would rest that none of what you said is gonna happen.
Well, I hope not.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Well, and I would just comment that what we, and I acknowledge that that was a misstep on my part, that we allowed that the potential route changes went to the board prematurely without it being, without that being worked through in the normal ways in the service committee. And so I'm sure I know that's where Mr. Durst got that.
I appreciate you taking responsibility on that. But where that email came from, that person should really lose their job. Ever since I've been on the board, the procedure was any information go to one board member, go to all board members. I didn't see that email till maybe last month. And I knew nothing about these route changes, nothing that he said. Now, I heard the consultant say that they didn't want low-income folks downtown, but that's another issue. But all this information is circulating. We
So-
need to,
So where we are with this process, and I think to put the best face on it, is that the kind of analysis that Mr. Durst has done just from those potential route changes is very helpful, because it really helps us to focus on, as we go through the process of any potential route changes needing to be brought to the service committee as a part of our reports on the update of the super stop, for us to vet that as well as we can before it goes to the board. The board would then approve it to go out for public comment. We take the public comment and then come back to the board for final approval before any changes are made. So all this is done for me is to alert us to that there are real life consequences for people when we change any routes. I mean, that is the reality. And so that we want to look carefully whether we're making life better for people or
Madam
harder.
Chair, I'm ready to differ with all of that. For the simple reason, I hadn't missed a service meeting in years. I've never been in a discussion to saying moving routes from Comet Central to Lucius Road. I've never been in a
No,
discussion.
we've not had that. We've not had that discussion of what exactly.
That's what was just discussed with somebody that's not even on the board.
Well-
I've never had that information.
Well, where we are now is at the point of that, having that discussion in service committee. I mean, that's when we have a continuing agenda item on updates for the super stop, and that's a next, I mean, I see that as a next step for the service committee to consider all those. Now, what in terms of planning was done in terms of the potential route changes, as we've had acknowledged, got sent to the board in the board packet out of order in terms of the process. And that's the information that went out with the board packet that Mr. Durst is operating from. So that he got that from the board packet, where what I've acknowledged is that went to the board prior to when it needed to, because it needed to come through service first.
But Madam Chair, we
Yeah.
still have to go by our bylaws. Our bylaws, if 10% of the routes are changed, the board has to approve it.
Oh,
See,
yeah.
we're still functioning with John Andor like he's here, because John, even going to the PUS system, I don't ever remember that being approved by the board.
Well, what I can assure you is that none of these route changes have been made, and they won't be made without us going, as you pointed out, without us going through the process that we need to evaluate whether that's the best step to take or not. Okay. Anything further? All right, thank you for raising those points, Walter, and I've taken notes, and I know that so has Pam, so we'll make sure that we look carefully at the kinds of examples that you've pointed out to us. All right, we move on then to number 4, the adoption of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, any discussion? Take the vote, Pam.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brennan, Mr. Fergus,
Oh, yes.
Ms. Gleaton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
yes,
Ms. Mood,
Yes,
Ms. Tricia. Motion passes.
thank you. And that takes us to number 5, the discussion and action items, and number 8 and 5A is passenger amenities program. We have someone, yes, there's Mr. McGee.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'll be reporting on the last 2 months, and what we've done is a lot of coordination with some different groups. We've coordinated with USC regarding some locations where they may be wanting to add some shelters or benches. They have one location that they definitely are, and then they have some more that they're kind of discussing internally right now. I've also been contacting property owners via phone and letters where easements will be required. And these are some of the stops that are listed as under design right now in our report. And with that, and with those contacts, we've had a few property owners show some interest in that. And I guess just kind of as a side note, right now, a lot of the stops listed in our report as in design are kind of in that stage where they would need an easement, rather than a lot of the stuff we've worked on in the past was within SCDOT right away. So they'll require a little bit more coordination with individual property owners and such to be able to get those approved. So that's what I have.
Do any of the committee members have questions for Mr. McGee?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
do have one question. We know that these routes are going to change. So my question is, why are we still putting up shelters when we don't know where the route's gonna be? We know they're gonna change.
Eric,
Ms. Harris, you had something to contribute to that?
yes, Eric Harris here. Yeah, so Zane and his team, we meet bi-weekly, but that has been a point of discussion as well. We are well ahead of that. We were careful even through the Reimagine the Comet project that we didn't make any significant changes that will impact any implementation thereof. And it's the same effort that is going forth in terms of any changes we may make with the Lucius and River Super Stop as well. So we are careful. We have a metric that we use. We pull all on and off data at each bus stop, and we try to see where passengers are using them the most. We try to make sure that we provide the proper amenity there. We also listen to customer complaints, and if we see fit and we know that this is a route that doesn't pose any changes in the near future, we go ahead and try to make sure we accommodate those passengers as well by providing the appropriate amenity.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
And all in regards to Mr. Harris, what he just said, these contractors aren't the determining factor of where a route's gonna be. So how would you know what's gonna be impacted when we make these changes?
Well, since I've been on, just in my capacity as the planner, I take a look at all the routes, all the ridership, all the data, and all amenities thereof. So I'm just utilizing what we have and what we know is being planned for the future. And again, as we have, I wouldn't quite say implement, but as we have finalized the Reimagine the Comet project, we were able to see where routes are being planned to go, and also taking a look at ridership trends. And that's why we look at those on-off data for these given stops to see where people are going. So now we see what the concentrated areas may be. And we're careful because we know that there are areas where someone may be interested in a local neighborhood. But those areas would probably be a little bit more cautious with because we're not sure what the lifespan of that may be. Maybe there may be interest from a neighborhood to readjust the route. But we want to make sure those main corridors, especially when we start to see passengers standing outside in the rain, and we see that multiple times, we want to make sure we provide them with some type of shelter in order for them to have a comfortable experience as they wait on the bus.
Eric, could I ask you to do this with you and Mr. McGee? Would you just, I know that we don't make route changes just all through the year anytime. We on a kind of a regular cycle of making sure we've taken all the right steps and then only making those changes at specific points in the year so that we don't just keep everything in a constant state of overturn. So I know that we have two things as you pointed out. One is, as we've been talking about, is when the implementing the super stop at Lucius Road is one. The other is the framework that the board approved for the Reimagine the Comet, which would is not a vote on route changes. It's a vote on the direction we want to go, and any specific route changes we'd have to act on individually. So if you would just do a review, please, of the list of sites that Mr. McGee, Davis, and Floyd are working on, and just flag any of them that have the potential for being not for that there wouldn't be a place for to install amenities with even potential plans for the super stop routes and the Reimagine routes. Am I getting this across? So that we see, I mean, because a lot of the ones on here may be on routes that neither of those is going to have any impact on.
Yep.
But I just think if I'm just asking if we can look ahead and make sure that we aren't asking Mr. McGee to work on things that have any potential for being impacted in the implementation of the super stop or the implementation of the Reimagine the Comet. That we know, at least know which ones those are, so that we don't do what Mr. Burgess is concerned about, and that is that we go through all of the process, install an amenity, and then the route changes, and that stop changes. Can you do that?
Yes, we can absolutely do that.
Just
That's
flag
no
those.
issue, though.
Okay, I'm looking at the list that we have from Mr. McGee on sites under permit review, sites and design, you know, and I think probably there's some that you can know that we can just go ahead and proceed with because they don't have any potential for being impacted. But I don't know that. That's what I want us to be sure we're working with that fully in mind.
Absolutely.
Ms. Clayton, how do?
Yeah, I have a question. I don't want us to forget about our seniors, number one. And really my concern is because I watch the people, I ride the bus periodically all the time. I just get on, just ride. They're hustling to get to their doctor's appointments and things and get their medication. We cannot forget about them because one day the young people gonna become a senior. And it bothers me when I see some of them are struggling, trying to get out there and catch the bus. And I have been on the bus and I've seen some of them, they don't have the correct change or they don't have enough money. Well, I'm like the person like this. If I can help somebody, I'm gonna help because I don't know who got to give me my last drink of water. So most of the time, I always keep some extra bus tickets and I'll say to the bus driver, here, use this for that person. And we cannot, that bothers me. We really need to make sure we got those seniors there because they struggling getting to the doctors and things. They can't afford a cab fare every time they go to a doctor. It's expensive. Gasoline is expensive. Everything is now, and our cost of living. But those are one things that is my concern, and it really bothers me. We really need to keep our seniors in our minds also for all these decisions that we make. Whatever decision we make, we need to think about them. That's my point.
Well, that's a good point that we're not looking at just at, will this be easy for able-bodied drivers, but how will this affect our
Right.
more vulnerable drivers?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
since we're talking about this, these changes and stuff, now Ms. Clayton
Join the meeting.
rides the bus. Now, if she rides the bus that leaves the neighborhood we live in to come downtown, she would need two buses. Now, do you think that board members would sit here and vote for something like that?
So what,
See,
they gonna
that's why
change
I'm-
12? They gonna change?
12 will go to Super Stop and you get to another bus and go downtown.
Oh, no, 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 no.
See, that's what I'm
Too
saying.
many
I
old
don't know
people
where
over
this
there in that area.
planning went on there.
Well, that's exactly.
This planning went on somewhere. Now, this planning just didn't happen by itself.
Well, and what you're raising is the same kind of point that Mr. Durst was raising, and those are exactly the things that we have to work through change
But
by
where did the-
change.
Where did the planning originate? Nobody controlled the origination of this. If we didn't control the origination of this, that means we didn't manage these employees that's wasting time.
Well, if what the service committee and the board approved was the super stop at Lucius Road. Then how that would impact the routes, we count on the planning staff to kind of map that out for us so that we have something to react to, because we don't, you're right, we don't sit down as a service committee and think up, examine, make a plan for every route ourselves. I mean, I certainly don't have that skill, because you all know better than I, and these folks know what has to happen for routes to interconnect and where you have to make changes and the timing. That's the technical expertise that we have to have for us to work from. And then what we bring as a service committee are the kinds of questions that you're raising and that Mr. Durst is raising, to say, now, wait a minute, if we do this, this is how people will be impacted. Is there another way to do that? Is there an alternative way? And then we vote, we make a recommendation to the board whether to make that
The
change
only
or
thing
not.
that bothers me, me and Ms. Gleason and I have been sitting at service meeting for years. We rarely miss. And we've seen none of this planning.
So
So that's what I'm saying. We've seen absolutely none of it. Zero.
Well, the only thing that you've seen and that I've seen has been that potential route changes that was in the board packet. Those are the things that you and I have both seen. And what I've been describing now is, in this meeting, is that those are the things that we need to work from, to do our work, just like you're saying, to examine what do those plans look like? What are the problems with them? Which ones can we say, yes, this will make it easier for people? Are there alternatives to ones that make it more complex? That's the work for us to do.
Mr. Harris has his hand.
Mr. Harris.
yeah, I just want to add just because I want some of the steps that we're taking. So you're absolutely right in terms of the conversation going directly to the board. It was brought up by Mr. Lawson that he wanted more information in regards to the super stop and the project and the planning efforts, the impact, the percentage of impact. And that was requested by the board to be included in the next board packet. At that time, the report was provided about the impact, but I did try to manage the expectations of this is literally preliminary plans and this is not finalized by any means. And we're still sorting through this. The routes that were provided, all of that stuff at this point in time is this is the most optimal way to operate this service. It's not to say that this is, again, the final product, and that's why we were slow to speak in regards to what the final recommendation will look like or what the planning efforts are thus far. But as of right now, this is what the route alignments are, and this is where each bus stop will have is, I guess it would terminate. The plans in itself, again, this is more so something that was kind of handed down, and meaning just the project in itself was handed down and it was filtered out, and I'm trying my best to find a way to make things right in order to move it forward. But that feedback from not only the service committee but also the public is warranted. We can't do anything without your approval, and we can't do anything without receiving public feedback in that process. But we have presented to the board earlier on, and I know we do have a Lucius Road super stop update, but I know for the sake of discussion, I just want to say that we did provide ample amount of information to the service committee and also the board. And this was between myself and also Ricky with the Reimagine the Comment project, because one of the complexities that we were dealing with is finding a way to integrate both projects. If I were to just be frank, I wasn't necessarily too fond of trying to combine both at the same time. But again, this is more so the set of cards that were given at the set of, as I was taking them on and everything was given to me. But trying to roll out both projects at the same time is difficult, but that integration process, we had to figure out a way to make sure we do this seamlessly without impacting service at a great magnitude. But what we did, we ran into a number of different issues, one of which we had a conversation with the committee. We had an issue with the traffic signal. And during that time, we were discussing different alternatives as if there was a chance that we would not be able to take on this location. You had a split on how the committee and also the board felt in regards to that. There was a vote that was provided. The committee did vote to not move forward with the project, considering we did not have a signal. We didn't have a notice to proceed for the signal to be installed. And the board voted as well on the same thing. We also discussed the impact and how the changing of the routes, and this before the plans were going out, about the potential of how it would cause longer trips in order to get into the downtown area, depending on which route you were on. But from there, we were able to find a way to get the signal installed at the intersection, and that's how the project was able to move back forward. But that's the full scope of how we ended up getting to this point. But just going back into that planning process, we had to figure out a way, again, to minimize some of those impacts with us moving forward. But we have had the conversations about some of, again, the potential impacts of moving forward, even though we're trying to minimize it.
All right, I'm going to ask if we can make sure that we've covered everything that Mr. McGee needs to give us, and any questions you have about that. And then if the committee's in agreement, it makes sense to me for us to move from B to D, just reorder those items on the agenda, since we already have focused on the super stop, and then take the ridership after the super stop, if that's all right with the committee. Is that okay to just reorder those agenda items? Anybody have an objection to that? Okay. Well, let's just go back now to where we were with the Mr. McGee's report. And is there anything else you have questions about the specifics of what he's given us to look at? I did notice that noticed the communication with Mr. Deschamps. It says that there are no unresolved issues. And so the one that we had as a pending issue with in Forest Acres is now on is that one of the shelters sites in design? Is that the one in design, Zach? Forest and Trenum?
Yes, 1037.
And so we're still working on easements there?
Correct. It would still be, it needs approval to move forward.
So even though it's off the unresolved list, but it's still on the pending list. Is that a fair way to describe it? I don't know. I noticed it's not. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But what you're telling me is we haven't gotten to the end of that process yet, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. And it's still an issue between the businesses in the area and Forest Acres to come to some decision about that?
Correct. And basically, I guess the reason it got moved is we had submitted a encroachment permit with DOT, and it sat there so long on there without getting resolved on their end that they just canceled the application. And so that's why we moved it back to design, because DOT had canceled that. And basically we just, in communication with them, we're just like, okay, we know what DOT is looking for. They want that. They want to see the community involved. So we'll submit the application again when we have that information for them.
Okay.
Because they were fine with the design. It was just that involvement that they were looking for.
Okay. It sounds pretty complex. Okay.
Isn't there some type of shelter right there at Trenum Plaza and Forest Drive right there? Isn't it?
Correct. And this one is across.
First Citizen Bank.
Across the street,
across the street from First.
across Forest Drive,
Yeah,
yes.
so the one that we're looking at is the one that would be on the side of the street that bank is on, that stop, is that, is that correct?
Correct.
And the concern that had been expressed was with, people gathering at those stops, is that right, Mr. McGee?
That
That
was
were not bus
information.
riders,
Yeah,
aren't sure about that?
yeah, I didn't bring up the concern, but yeah, something along those lines is what was brought up.
Okay, and so what you're saying is that we still have to get DOT approval, but they're waiting for those issues with the community to be resolved, to be a part of our application to them, and then we'll go back through that step.
Yes.
I mean, I continue to be amazed at how many steps and how many difficulties we can run into with just getting benches and shelters in place.
And they have cleaned that homeless lady used to be out there all the time. And they have really cleaned that lady up, because I don't see her out there anymore. And I'm out there all the time because that's my bank, that's a First Citizen. And I have not seen her out there in the last month or so anyway. Because I go out that way a lot of time and go out to eat and stuff.
Okay, so or maybe you can help me with this. When we're running into a situation like this, who has the ball now? Is it Mr. McGee's job to pursue this with Forest Acres and the business, the public community there? Is that our planning? Is that a planning function? Who carries that ball at this point to the next step on this one?
We've normally approached this, I guess, together. So you never know who has the appropriate resource or whether, what type of approval it may need. But we may schedule a meeting. We may try to meet with the neighborhood association. So many different ways to go about it, depending on the level of aggression. And that's typically how we go about it. But to answer your question directly, it's in the wheelhouse of more so planning and the engineering. And then you have cases where the executive director would intervene as well when it's just beyond our scope.
Okay. My main concern is that we just not let things fall through the cracks. If there's a need for amenities there, for a shelter there, that we just not let that fall through the cracks, because each person assumes that somebody else is following through. That's my.
This is Will Brennan. Can I ask a question, Madam Chairwoman?
Sure.
For that particular location, Forest Acres is building a new park. I think on the other side of the creek down there.
Mhm.
Would that not be something we should address with them about the location of a bus of a transit stop closer to that public park offering, as well as combining for the need for that one there? Maybe a new location might be a better path forward.
So just
Throwing that out there for maybe the Forest Acres.
Having a stop that serves that same area, but may not be in that specific stop location. Is that what you're saying? The stop itself?
Right, with their new master plan park coming in, that might change where the need for the planning for that transit stop is.
Okay, but Mr. Harris, would you make note of that and make sure that gets included in the discussion?
Absolutely. It's already
And
noted.
thanks for pointing that out, Will. Did you have something else, Ms. Clee?
Okay, that park is gonna be closer on up there to that church right there on the right. What's that big church? Is that Shannon? Shannon. It is a bus
It's going to
stop
be on the
somewhere.
other side of Gills Creek, on the creek there, where there used to be a restaurant, Zoe's Kitchen right there.
Oh,
And then
okay.
the big fabric store that got flooded
Right,
in
right,
2015. It's
Uh-huh.
behind that, so it's not too far down.
okay.
So
From the
that's
First
part of that
Citizens
plan
area.
for kind of repurposing that area in flood prone areas. Is that part, the park is part of that plan, Will?
I know what you're talking
Yes, man. Yeah, I think that town of Forest Acres bought some flooded properties, and that's the property they're converting to a nice park.
And so that really is very close to where the present stop is. It wouldn't be.
It is, yeah, it absolutely is.
But may just be enough of a shift to relieve some of the concerns. I'm glad you brought
Well,
that
and it
up.
might make it might make the passing easements a little easier as well.
Yes, that sounds good. Well, thanks for raising that issue, and Eric, I'll count on you to follow through on that.
Yep.
So with that, are we done with Mr. McGee's report? Any other questions? All right, then we'll move on, and I didn't mean to skip over you,
Oh,
Mr.
no, no, you're
Mr.
fine.
Cooks.
Fine.
When so let's just, is it all right with you if we take up, is it?
Oh, sure.
Okay
no,
with you? If we just go on and finish up this any other Lucius Road discussion, because while we have our minds there, and then we'll go back up and pick up on the transit operations, the ridership analysis, the regular other board items. So, so Mr. Harrison, Leroy, would you, let's move then to 5D. And if you will update us on the super stop, and as well as making sure that we have on our agenda with any background materials that we need to do a kind of step-by-step walking through what was in those preliminary plans, and have the service committee consider that in depth. And
Absolutely.
we don't have the background for that now, but I would ask that if we could be, will we be ready to do that at the next meeting?
Yes, we'll do.
And let me ask you one more thing. Remind me of the schedule of when the next cycle of service changes, just on the general calendar. January, they'd have to be ready by January. Okay, so we would really need to, well, we're not gonna be ready by January to make any service changes, because we are in November now. The board meets now they don't meet in December. If we don't vet it until our next meeting, we won't be able to make that deadline. Am I right? Okay. All right, so, and in fact, I mean, the stop, well, I don't think we need to do a call meeting because if the stop's not ready anyway, so I think we've got some time in there, but I just want to know, I wanted to have that in my head, because I don't want us to do ad hoc kind of changes when I want us to stay in a reasonable cycle. Okay, but we can begin that work, because that work of vetting may well take us more than one meeting anyway. Right.
Jacques Louis McCann.
Okay, so
Madam Chair,
I'm gonna back up. Yes, sir.
let me ask you something. I noticed on the paperwork for the board as consultant on the Lucius Road Superstop was Brownstone. Why don't we have Brownstone come in and give us a report if they're the consultant on the project?
Well, would in planning for our vetting these plans, Mr. Harris, I'll count on you to bring into that discussion. And if Brownstone's part of that planning, I think that, that we can
know what they're doing.
Yep.
I asked, for the
because
record.
they're doing construction. Is that not right?
They're the engineering firm on the project, but Comet staff as a whole, we manage that contract. And so we're able to provide the report for them. But if you wanted something in greater depth or detail, I can understand why you may want them inside the meeting as well.
But Brownstone's work doesn't really affect routes. It's just the construction of the site.
Absolutely. You're right. Correct.
But that's not, our paperwork says Cherokee Construction Brownstone Consultant. Now, either we got wrong paperwork or Brownstone's not the consultant on it. Cherokee is listed as contract.
Can you clarify that, Mr.
construction.
Harris?
Yes, Brownstone, they are the principal on this project. So they are the contract recipients. They subcontracted the construction company for this project, Cherokee.
So they are doing the engineering and all for the site, and then Cherokee's doing the actual construction?
Absolutely.
Okay. So for the work that I'm thinking that we need to do, examining the impact on routes, probably they wouldn't have anything to contribute to that because they're just doing the site work. Okay.
But the problem is, we don't have a board member that know anything about the site. I asked the chair, I said, you know, you don't know what's going on Lucius Road. Nobody knows. You don't either. You don't know what's going on down there.
You mean out here at the work on the
Lucius Road,
site?
right.
Well, that's what we're gonna hear right now from Mr. Harris is an update on that. So I'm gonna back off now and let you present what you have.
Yeah, well, outside of what I've shared thus far, the physical completion of the project, we're right now at 75% and we're 78% financially complete with the project. We suspect that this project should close out within the next couple of weeks. So definitely in the month of November, I believe that I'm almost 95% sure that we'll be good to go. The next steps in the process will be to receive the notice to proceed. Well, not notice to proceed, the certificate of occupancy. And that may take some time, but I did encourage Brownstone to make sure that we get on top of that to make that way we don't have any hiccups in getting a clear go ahead. Because again, we do have a driver training area on this site. We want to be able, even if we're not able to implement service to be used at this location immediately, we can at least be able to start getting some drivers trained up as we start to make service changes and adjustments. Because as we move towards the tail end of this year, we know we may start to see a dip in people being able, I guess, moving in different directions. So we want to make sure we stay fully staffed. And of course, that's more so out of our wheelhouse, but that's something that we want to make sure that we have in place. As far as the site in itself, we do plan next week to meet. We plan next week to meet on the 17th in person, and we're going to do a site walkthrough, and we're incredibly excited about that. If you are in person, I'm pretty sure you saw it as you was passing in. So it's a lot of work that has been done thus far. We had a lot of issues as far as dirt and the quality of dirt that was on the site. It was almost like a dumping area. And so now we have engineering dirt there. Everything is where it needs to be. So we are happy about the quality of service and construction that has gone forth up to this point. And so now we're just working on the next parts of that process, and that is the planning portion.
Okay, so my understanding is that what you're saying is that certificate of occupancy, that's the final sign off on the actual physical site is ready to be used. Is that right? And then you'll be doing that walkthrough. You anticipate doing that on November 17th?
Yep, November 17th.
November 17th. Okay, so at that point, then the RAPDEV can do driver training and things at that site, but it won't, that doesn't imply that routes change at that point. That just implies, that just says the site's ready for our use, however we determine to use it.
That's
right?
absolutely correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions further for Mr. Harris on that?
Well, yes, I still have a question. When it was originally planned, Dr. Morris' concern was that the bus passengers would be outside. How could you close the transit center and put the passengers outside? What has been done at this site to rectify that? Because it looked like a giant parking lot to me.
So Mr. Harris, are there shelters for the passengers at the super stop site? I don't see Eric's on that screen again.
He's there.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, we do have shelters, 16-foot shelters being installed at the site. That's something that's being worked on as we speak. I received a phone call right before this meeting. We're trying to get some things squared away with that.
Okay. So it's not indoor, it's not inside a building, but it's their shelters.
It's going to be a shelter. Yeah.
All right, one other, since you're in on this planning, how are you going to rectify? Because you can't use the pulse system at this superstar because the planner said that the distance was too great. How are you going to rectify that without going back to the normal bus route system?
You're asking the tough question, but the way that I've been thinking about this is trying to figure out a way to increase the frequency of the routes. So again, most of our routes are 30-minute headways. Is there any opportunity? Again, we want to say too prematurely, but is there any opportunities that we can move to 15-minute headways, which will reduce the travel times in order if you do have to do a transfer from like Lucius and River and trying to get to Comet Central? So it's just looking at those areas for room for improvement. We can also look at this in terms of some of the routes that may be lower performing. Can we adjust some of those routes? Can we interline some routes? How can we find a way to improve the efficiency of the system in the areas where people use the routes the most that will be more significantly impacted by this plan going forward? So that's what we're looking at now.
So Eric, what I think the expectation that I hear with the service committee is that those kinds of thoughts, exploring thoughts, potential possibilities are the kinds of material, if outline those things for the committee's discussion at our next meeting, so that we kind of know what's in your head and what's on paper in terms of what the possibilities are for us to explore as a committee, so we can make a reasonable recommendation to the board.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that will, Pam, make sure that,
All right.
and I hope we'll have a light agenda on everything else, so we really have time to devote to that. Okay, well, thank you very much. Now, we'll get back up to Mr. Cooks's report up at, on 5B.
All right, good afternoon.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no worries. I'll apologize ahead of time. I'm not able to project my voice like I normally do, so do the best I can with it. As of the time we put this report together, there were no reported cases, at least, or quarantine in reference to COVID-19. I know that Section F is an update on that, so I'll talk a little bit about that during this. But again, at this time, there's no reported cases of quarantine at this time. We do plan on having a local physician who came to see us last year, Dr. Daniels, to come back and discuss COVID, the vaccines, and flu prevention best practices. We did it last year. It went over very well. So the goal is to have him come back in December to discuss that. Because, you really can't tell the difference between the flu and COVID-19 symptoms alone, because they're the same. So we have to make sure we continue to talk about that, right? And I'll tell you why as we get further into this report, how that came up. As far as our customer service, we did see a spike in customer service concerns in September. I know we didn't get an opportunity to meet here. We've been engaged in a customer engagement campaign internally with our staff, and then for the month of October, we did see that decrease. So we did exceed our target goal. So we'll continue to focus in that area. I'd like to say congratulations to Tanya Robinson, so RATP Dev, common employee, very delightful for employee of the month, ultimate team player, very positive attitude. We'd like to thank her, as well as Lakeisha Braswell from TCS. It's a 22-year veteran, great attitude, excellent safety record, very dedicated. So those are fantastic people. And I just want to make sure that we highlight the good work they do, in addition to everyone else as well. Going into our maintenance, again, our preventive maintenance.
Can I, Madam Chairwoman, can I ask a question on the concerns?
Yes.
I think a couple months ago, we had a transit rider come and give us some public comments about the need for better security via cameras. Have we installed the cameras that were mentioned? And also, if we have those serious concerns about rider safety, are those falling off because of that? Can you just give us an update on that?
As far as the concerns, I have not, part of our influx or increase in our, concerns that we saw were not related to any security issue concerns, or at least that has not been brought to me on that. What we saw was in the area of reliability and not so much on how the route was performing, but on our pass up concerns. Some of them were valid and some were not. And so that's why we've engaged in a campaign related around making sure I'd be able to identify people and looking for people at the stops to just ensure that we are making sure we stop and to pick everyone up. As far as that aspect of it, as far as the cameras, you know, I don't know if Jackie, you have an opportunity to, if there's an additional you want to add to the, you know, to the camera part of that particular complaint. I think you may recall that.
Yeah,
one.
that's something still pending with our IT department.
The operation. of
Well,
The extra cameras.
are
that's-
are the same actions and concerns still going on, or have we changed our operations to identify it and respond to it in a responsible way?
As far as anything that occurs on the buses, as far as safety, those particular events were captured on the existing cameras that we have. I think the incident you're referring to is a young lady that came and did the report as to what happened to her on the back seat of the bus. We have not received any additional reports about that occurring again.
And so the extra cameras were to cover more area on the bus than. the
Yeah, we were
bus.
looking at putting like an extra camera like on the back of the bus so it could capture the back seat area. As of now, the existing cameras that we do have do not capture
That back
it
row.
captures the back seat from the front of the bus, but it doesn't look on top of the seated area in the back.
Okay.
So if we put one back above the back seat, then that would capture everything.
Yeah,
back.
everything back.
So that's still in process.
And any new buses that come online, will they have that spec'd into it?
What's that question again?
New buses that we get will have the cameras on the back off from the start instead of having to add them.
No, I think we still will have to add them.
Okay, but let's just make sure that's in our spec for every new bus
Yes.
that goes into operation.
Okay. All right, so while we're exploring the reliability, so the biggest issue for customer complaints has been getting bypassed, the bus not stopping.
Yes.
And so when you investigate that, I mean, I understand how you can and have the footage on camera for security issues on the bus. What happens in investigating a pass up? How do you determine whether that was a valid
Yeah,
complaint?
sure. No, it's, so when that complaint comes in, we have a quality assurance person. And what they do at that time is once we get the actual complaint, we pull the video on that particular bus, wherever the complaint is, and we review that video. And of course, you know, we take all the information from the customer. We review the video so you can see pretty clearly if it was a situation where maybe it was dark, if, you know, or if the person just went, you know, for some reason didn't stop. So what happens at that time, once it's determined the, you know, the validity in reference to how the video, the operator is called in to get, you know, their side of the story or to interview for that particular case, what happened. Based on everything we see, then we, you know, if it's a situation where we have to issue discipline, progressive discipline in reference to someone that intentionally bypasses someone, it's done at that time.
So the cameras that we have working
Yeah.
now, you can go back in real time to that
Yes.
point in time of the complaint
That's correct.
and see whether the bus went past a stop and see if somebody was standing at the stop when they
Yes.
passed.
Yes, we can see it, but we can also trace it in our system that you came and looked at, so we can actually
Yes.
follow the bus
Yeah.
to see if it actually stopped
Mhm.
based on the time, and then we can visually see it as well.
Okay.
So there's multiple ways to, when we go back and look at these complaints, to verify them.
Okay.
So it's pretty
good.
accurate.
But I'm glad we have that capability too, so we aren't just
Take it
trying
in his
to
word.
deal with word of mouth and people's memory of the event.
Yeah,
That's-
every
that's
event
great.
that comes through is investigated.
Right.
And
I'm glad to know
fortunately
that,
through
that you have
camera.
that capability of doing that.
Yes,
Because sometimes people will just make up stories too, so you
Or
have to.
they
be
think
real
they
careful.
think they're close enough to the stop that the driver
Yeah.
should have seen them, when
Right.
in fact they may not have have been actually, so that, yeah, that's very helpful to have the actual, the visual of that. Okay, fine, all right, please.
Oh, yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
good, thank you. As far as our, excuse me, our maintenance, preventive maintenance, 100% on time. There, we've had our highest distance between road calls in the past 7 months. This is a positive thing. You recall during the summer months, we were kind of struggling there for a variety of reasons, heat, parts, et cetera. So we have, as far as our targeted miles between road calls, we have for the last 2 months exceeded that goal. And then, of course, over the last several months, 5 months, that we kind of posted our highest number there. What we're keeping an eye on now, however, sometimes you think you're turning the corner and you run into other issues. It's just our diesel fuel shortage. It's global. And so we are obviously watching our fuel in reference to the markets and when things come in, just to make sure we're covered there. So, but as far as maintenance, we did manage to hit all of our goals and exceed them this month.
So how do we cope with in a diesel fuel shortage? What can you do if we've got
Yeah.
the buses dependent on diesel?
Well,
fuel?
I'm meeting with the maintenance team to take a look at a alternative plan to see how we do that. Fortunately, we've been able to stay flush in that area.
Mhm.
It's just something that we've got to be mindful of, because you're right, we get to a point, it could impact us if we're not able to get those
So
fuel
right now,
shipments
you're
in.
in a preventive stance. in
Yes,
terms of-
right.
Got to have a backup plan now.
Right.
All right.
So, yes, ma'am. Talking about our on-time performance, September, we saw our highest OTP since the inception of the contract. We did see a slight decrease in October. I mean, it's pretty close to flat in reference to our fixed route service, and I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of this. Something I want to add to it. DART did see a 15% decline in October versus the previous month, and that's a pretty heavy, steep decline. And I don't foresee this being a long-term issue. But however, they did run into some major challenges in the month of October related to staffing and people out, medically. They also are short some operators as well that have kind of compounded. In addition to what I spoke about earlier, they went through a bout of the flu, just like on the fixed route side. So that also impacted just having availability. So that's the reason we see their number down. So obviously we that's not the norm, right? So we anticipate them being able to turn the corner on that and as we go forward. As far as our, there's an on-time performance graph, I just add that in just to kind of show the plateau of where we are versus where we were previously. And I also include a graph that really just shows kind of the window of performance, of our on-time performance, of how we brought it in. I mean, we're not there, but it used to be really far apart as far as reaching the goal. And then we've kind of tightened the window. The window's still tight. We're still within that window. Considering the challenging month that we had in October. Talking about our, and I'll just go ahead and mention it now before I jump into ridership. A lot of times we're data centric, obviously data driven. It's the numbers, how we're doing, but we don't want to lose sight, say this, that, the people behind the numbers. And I'm saying that to say unfortunately, we know Mr. Huggins passed, but we also had an operator that passed within a week of that time frame, Mr. Sylvester Pugh. So we're, like to continue to lift his family and friends in prayer. But I'm saying that because that's our third operator in 6 months that had been active in addition to Mr. Huggins. that's a lot on a staff. And we have, we had the fortunate that our organization allowed us to bring in additional assistance from the outside through our EAP program to counsel people, but you just don't know the effects of that. And it was heavy. It's still heavy because this recent one was only a couple of weeks ago, and it was someone that was well liked. And I'm just saying that because I know we talked the numbers, but I just wanted to make sure that behind the numbers, that there's real things happening. And we appreciate the comment support as we get through this period that we still find ourselves in. So I just wanted to, going to talk about it at the end. I just wanted to mention it now, that we appreciate the support as we continue to get through that.
And this might, this could be in the COVID report, but it is just as appropriate here, is that in this time when we've experienced a real spike in the regular flu season, if you want to call it that. I mean, there's so much more flu now than we've had in the last couple of years. And that's not unconnected. You know, it's when people were masking for COVID, it protected people from the flu and from colds and all kinds of things. So it had a benefit, you know, beyond the COVID protection. And so I think as you work with staff, if you help them make that connection, because even though we're not talking mandates these days,
Right.
you know, just the common sense protective mechanisms work. and as they know that, and of course, I always want us to keep on encouraging staff to take the booster, because all of the evidence is that does add protection. And every time we add protection for our staff, we add protection for riders. We're lessening their impact. So as much as we can just keep those messages going. I was talking to a physician just this past week, and of course, everybody gets frustrated, but he was frustrated because he said, you know, he has people come in for their flu shot and they say, oh, well, give me the flu shot, but don't give me the COVID. And within 2 weeks, he'll get a call from them saying, I'm feeling awful. And they've got COVID. I mean, so when you offer and people decide they're not vulnerable, but they are vulnerable, whether we think we are or not. So, and he's seeing patients, and he has a broad practice, but he's seeing patients that are 60 years old. I mean, they're not old like me. They're in the age that they think they're not, you know, that they're going to be okay, but they're ending up in the hospital. So I just think just because somebody said this week, just because we got tired of COVID did not get tired of us. It's still right there. And we just need to keep those protective messages fresh for our staff and for us. Thank you. Thank you for letting me preach a little.
No.
And just keep encouraging your employees, because it's very important. Because I went into my doctor's office and I just got everything. I said, everything I'm gonna do to 75 years old, give it to me.
Right.
And I got 4 shots while I'm sitting there. He's believing, I like your spirit. I said, well, I'm gonna take care of me and my body, because I want to enjoy life with my grands and my children.
And in the process, you are protecting other people.
Exactly, because I'm out all the time.
All right.
No, thank you. And I'll, but thank you for that. I will, summarizing our ridership, the report that we do here. What we've seen is the month of October versus last year, we've seen an increase. In fact, the last 5 months, if we compare to what we've done in 2021 to 2022, we've increased steadily versus 2021, and the 155,000 ridership for 2022 was actually our second highest in the last 10 months. So we're granted we didn't perform what we did in September, but again, it did exceed everything else that we had done as far as our related to our average daily ridership. As far as the Gamecock ridership, we did see a 4% increase there. I included in this report, and I believe the last one as well, but we also had the ridership numbers for our Gamecock football shuttle. which all of them, we were quite busy in September, actually. And 2 games in October. So over that stretch, we went 4-2, but we did see our largest numbers on September 24th, which was against Charlotte. And I believe that was, if I'm not mistaken, Parents' Day. So that was a full deal there. So we did so without incident. So very proud of the team for that. It's tight down there, so they do a good job.
The buses do an excellent job. I can give you credit on that because I get them and watch them too.
All right, thank you.
Those bus drivers are dead on target with getting those people there, busing them there. So y'all are doing a good job.
Thank you. I'll make sure they know that. As far as our, just to talk a little bit about our safety, I'm not sure if I mentioned it previously, but we have a new tool now that we're very excited about. It's called Drive Cam. It's a camera system. And it's a tool to help the operators in reference to any safety issues, right? We just had it installed in all the vehicles. And this month we'll be introducing that to the operators as far as we have a new Drive Cam safety tool. And what it does, it's kind of like on a point system. So for example, if you're following too close, it'll beep and notify you and it's in a video clip to us. Or if you make an illegal turn, or if you're driving and say you kind of nod off like that, it's gonna pick it up. It sends a video clip to our safety department. We get the clip and we call you to come in and whatever explanation it is. So it gives us another level that we just haven't had to this degree to help drive down our safety numbers. So we just finished off that entire installation. And again, we'll be kind of introducing that to the operators on what it is. And then our goal is to roll that out and do a lot of active coaching starting in December. So, which is perfect for the new year as we look forward to helping drive down, some of our preventable accidents. We did have something for the first time this year happen in September that we're very proud of. We had no accidents or incidents that resulted in any type of injuries. The goal is always 0 on everything when it comes to safety. That was the first time that we were able to do that. Some of the work that we had put in July and August in the summer to get there. So we celebrated, you have to celebrate the wins. So we did pizza and all that good stuff for everybody. And our goal is to hopefully do that every month. So we're going to continue to work in that area to get better and better. As far as our human resources, so let me tell you what's happening. We're in a decent place. And I say that we're at around 120, as of today, probably 122.5 operators, active operators. And that number fluctuates based on people come and go. I know around us, there are a lot of agencies, not just here in South Carolina, but nationwide, are really still struggling to recruit. And there are a lot of reasons for that. What we do is we advertise through our system, which is called Kronos. We use Indeed. South Carolina Works is a great partner. South Carolina Veterans Careers, Hispanic Alliance. We go to job fairs. Anything, we take referrals. In fact, we had a couple this weekend, people that have contacted us, and now we're in the application process. We do walk-in Wednesdays, which means anybody can walk in off the street. You want to interview for a job? Come on in. We'll help you fill out the application. We'll do anything we can do to see, to work with anybody to see if we get them hired. Because what we have to do now, what we see now is really different than what we saw last year. And I mean to say, like, for now, I'll go into a class, introduce myself and say, hey, tell me a little bit about your history. You used to get, well, I worked in transit here. I drove this bus. I worked in this city, so you had a lot of experience that was, somewhat moving around. Now you'll get someone who will say, well, they've never worked in transit. They worked in retail here. They may have worked in the restaurant industry, completely different. So therefore, your focus on your training and everything has to change because they don't have any experience handling the bus. And so like I said, it's like the game is completely changed today, even from a year ago to now, as far as what we see. So we're staying very aggressive because it doesn't take much to lose your ground on this, because we know all around us, everyone is struggling more so than us. But we're still managing to hang on, and we try to do that through engagement as well. We do a lot of customer engagement or employee engagement activities, recognition, anything we can do to to show that this is a great career, a great place to work. But it is a different generation, so you gotta make it attractive for them. So
Madam Chairwoman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
This
go ahead.
is Will. Do we have enough demand for CDL licenses to do our own CDL license program in-house? You get a lot of talent coming through the door, like you mentioned, that doesn't have transit experience. Is something like that possible for us to just take it on our shoulders and homegrow the talent into the CDL license?
yeah, we actually do that now. That's one of the reasons we've been able to have some success in holding the line in that, because we can take someone that never even seen a bus and train them to be an operator from the very beginning stages, where they get their passenger, what they call endorsement, a permit, to getting a passenger endorsement, to getting your full CDL license. Everything is done right here. We have a team that does that. So we can train homegrown right here
And so what time frame does that?
that
require?
usually takes, so someone comes in with no experience, no license, and some of it's based on them, but you're looking at about 8 weeks. We can get someone through the program in 8 weeks. Maybe 9, depending if sometimes you got to go back through something, but we're looking at, like we can take you and get 8 weeks and you'll be ready for the road.
Thank you. Just-
All right.
Thank you, but no thanks.
That's amazing. I mean, I think we need to be marketing that on billboards and everything. I mean, I think that's great. I didn't know we had that capability.
Well, let me ask you, and this is really a related question. When you look at those classes of the folks coming in, the training classes, are you seeing a difference in age groups in that? Are you seeing younger people coming?
No, I'm not necessarily
Not
seeing
necessarily?
younger. No, not.
So you
I'm
don't
not.
see a demographic change in that?
It's not a large difference. Like, we're not seeing people in their 20s and 30s. You're generally seeing 40, 50, 60.
Okay.
That's what, normally what we're seeing.
Military retirees too.
Not enough. I'd like to see more. And that is why our person Courtney is working in
That's
that
a good
area,
recruiting
trying
deal,
to
'cause a lot of
bring
those guys
veterans.
Coming out the military,
come
y'all can
in.
get some of them, that have had that experience,
Right.
would help.
Yes, I agree.
Well, and I'm thinking too that just for a variety of reasons, if people lose their jobs in their 50s, job hunting is hard work. And so if there's an avenue that they can pursue, they may not have thought of before, that would be a real.
Yeah, I think the average age of a bus driver, I've seen some different reports, is different in different places, probably between 50 and 55 years old. That's your age. And you have many still driving in their 70s,
Right.
because that's part,
Mhm.
if they're able to pass the Department of Transportation physical,
Mhm.
which many are healthy and can,
Mhm.
it's a good career. They still drive, and they still safely drive. So it's an older industry. And that is some of our challenge too, not just here, but nationwide, is because you have a lot of these veterans who've been driving for decades that maybe hit their late 60s or 70s, and they're retiring out.
Mhm.
So, but you don't have these 20 and 30s coming in, right? But that's the industry's issue, problem from decades ago of not looking that far ahead, right? But we're here now, and COVID it's made that really go fast. So that is what we're, continuing to work through, and what we see here as well.
Let me ask one more question before we move on from this topic.
Sure.
The 8-week course that we do for a transit operator license, is that the overarching CDL license? I mean, are those folks now qualified to go become long haul truckers and
Yes.
all those other logistical operations
Well,
when it
they
comes to driving?
are.
So it's the same license.
It's the same license, however, there's different endorsements on those licenses. So we do what we call a Class B license, which means you can drive a school bus or transit vehicle with a P endorsement, which is for passengers, meaning you are now allowed to carry passengers. If you wanted to go long haul, you would actually have to convert that Class B to a Class A, which allows you to drive, your tractor trailer trucks over the road and so forth. You can still have the passenger endorsement with the Class A. That's what I have. Means you can do it all.
Mm-hmm.
Because the A would supersede the B, and you can drive transit with an A as well, long as you have the passenger endorsement. But so to answer your question, for them to move into that arena, they would still have to move in from a Class A to Class B, and there's some requirements that they'd have to take at that point.
And do we take part-time drivers?
We do.
Like,
We have,
what,
yes, sir. We've increased our reach to include part-timers. So we are open. There's a cap on that per the collective bargaining agreement with our union, but we do have open slots for part-timers. And in fact, we've had
Okay.
several apply recently.
well, yeah, and you look at the school district's bus fleet, they have, they're short opportunities there if you haven't reached out to the school district or for those part-time slots.
Yes, sir. So to close this out, we had a good month as far as our distance between road calls. We exceeded that goal. We've also, in our customer complaints, we've also exceeded that one for the month of October, as well as our preventable accidents. Didn't have the success we were looking for as far as our paratransit OTP, but we'll obviously be looking at that and understand the challenges that they faced, but we also faced in fixed route as we kind of leveled off for the month of October. And that completes my report.
All right, any further questions for Mr. Coetzee? Thank you very much. All right, let's see. Ridership analysis. So we've looked at the broad rider numbers. Eric, can you tell us some more about the more route specific rider analysis?
Yes, so as of September 2022, we have carried 1,207,516 passengers since January. So just looking at calendar year, which is about 12% down from last year this time. But just focusing on this month, we are up 6% in ridership for weekday. We saw no change in Saturday service, and we're slightly down by 4% for Sunday level of service. Because of the growth in weekday ridership, we have no routes that negatively stand out. So we have nothing there. In the previous month, we were actually up by 26%. So we are seeing a climb, and we want to continue to see that climb. So we can close that gap of where we were last year, I guess, in year's end. So we want to continue to be steady there. But for Saturday and Sunday, they're both in similar spaces. As of right now, routes are up and down from month to month, but we don't see any significant trends where you're seeing consecutive months where a route is just trending in the wrong direction. So nothing of interest there. But no matter how much we want to be optimistic as we go into these winter months, and I think as Mr. Coetzee, he was talking earlier about how he's starting to see ridership plateau a little bit. We got to be cautious that a lot of people may not feel as comfortable because of the weather, standing at bus stops. So we just want to make sure we pay close attention to that and trying to develop some strategies. And again, not to bring it up again, but as we start to look at the Lucius and River Super Stop, what are the ways that we can become more efficient with the service that we have out? It's not always about generating the most ridership. It's about being efficient with what we have that's out there. So these are some of the things that we'll be thinking about as we start to track ridership for the next couple of months.
Any questions for Eric on that? That's good news to have ridership continuing to go up. No specific questions for Eric? Okay, well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Improved soda cap update, Pam.
So I'm gonna challenge my co-presenter, Mr. Harris, when he says about ridership, because we're all about trying to make sure that ridership goes up on soda cap. So what we have so far, and I'll try to be brief because I know it's getting a little late. We have the new schedule maps being designed. Eric and Blake have helped tremendously with the time points and making sure that we have a schedule that makes sense, that is efficient, and that serves the needs of the people who ride it. I'm working with Historic Columbia and Wagoja, who are the authors of the Green Book, to have do-it-yourself narrated tours on soda cap when it comes online in January. And how that would kind of work is that we would have it recorded and they can download it by using the Wi-Fi on the buses and listen to it in their earbuds. We'll say, get on at this stop and then cut the recording on. And then that way they'll have a narrated tour. That's the do-it-yourself part. But we're also trying to work with Historic Columbia to have an in-person option. If you have a group of, let's say, 20 or more, where someone would get on the bus at that stop and then narrate the tour, and you can ask questions and answers and things like that. So we're trying to work through that to really, show the purpose of what soda cap is for. And also the Restaurant and Lodging Association is really excited about the success of Restaurant Week, Hop with Pot, back in October. And we're exploring participating in January Restaurant Week with not only a westbound to the River District like we did, but bringing on eastbound, which goes to 5 Points, and giving those restaurants a little bit of love there. We're hoping to have the vehicles wrapped with the new design before they go on the road in January, as well as bus stop signage updated. I know Blake's been working really hard on that. We had to pause for a second because U of SC is now back to USC. So we're, trying to figure out, okay, what does that look like on the stops now? So it's just a little hiccup, not a huge concern. Lastly, working through developing partnership plans that will promote Soda Cap Connector, or businesses will promote it on their website and on their social media accounts. The hotels are working with us to offer discounts for riders of Soda Cap Connector events. So, we've been able to pull in not only the restaurants, but also the hotels are excited about, saying, hey, if you went on Hop with Pop, we'll offer you a 10% discount on your stay or something like that. So we're really happy with how the partnerships have been going.
Well, I can tell you firsthand that the restaurant bus was lots of fun, and had a very diverse and happy crowd to be on that bus. They got happier and happier as the night went on. But what I was thinking is that when people said, well, when are you going to do this again? And I thought it went so smoothly with that bus full of people going from restaurant to restaurant. They were very
Along
well.
the route, remember, it was along the route.
On the route, and they were very well prepared to handle things in a smooth way so that there wasn't a lot of waiting, and people felt very welcome. But I thought, one bus load is as much as a restaurant could handle.
Exactly.
You can't say, well, that was so popular, let's send 2 buses. You can't do that. But I thought when you said the eastbound and the restaurants in 5 Points, that kind of merges with my thought about if you end up having different clusters of restaurants and then have a bus that would say, if you want to do the Hop on Pop for, I don't know what the cluster would look like.
Eastbound.
But you're doing generally eastbound, but I'm thinking even if it gets more popular, that you may say, well, this cluster of restaurants are the ones that I'm the most interested in visiting. And then, and I can choose which cluster I want to visit by which ticket I buy. And that would be the way to expand it without overloading restaurants with an influx of too many people at one time.
Exactly. And the restaurants appreciated the fact that they had a captive audience on a relatively slow night, which a Tuesday or Wednesday is slower. And which is why we decided to do eastbound and westbound, because the people who went on the event ride that you went on were like, the next time you do this, we're gonna do it again. So it basically, you don't have any room for any new people to get to experience it. So this was our way of doing it in both directions. One on one night, one on another night.
Well, and the fact that you won't have people that want to do it again is a really a good sign too, and that tell other people, and I can tell you, as part of the benefit to the visitors and the tourism economy is it gives people a wonderful way, both residents and visitors, to just try out a restaurant, to, you know, see what is this like, and so you may go back to that just because of the experience you had on the soda cabinet. So I agree that was a huge success.
Oh, and I have one more thing to add, and this is for the benefit of the Honorable Mr. John Fergus. We definitely will do that special, I guess it's not a special route, it'll be the entire route, but inviting Allen University
The
students
parents, the
on.
ones that got,
Yeah,
that one
they
that
didn't,
got
yeah, they
delayed.
didn't get to go then, but we're definitely gonna do it probably first quarter.
Oh, okay. Good. Very good.
Well, that's a happy note. So that brings us to 5F, and is there any additional COVID update or impacts?
Do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything additional.
I would like to add that the vendor health force only did one vaccine clinic at Comet Central. It was initially scheduled for the 17th and the 24th, but as we all know, Mr. Huggins' services were on the 17th.
Right.
So we only did the 24th. And 60 people got vaccinated, and we attribute that in large part to the incentive of a $50 gift card if they would get a vaccine.
And how did we do that?
That was a third party.
Okay.
That was someone that works with a partner of Health Force,
Mhm.
does that at some of their clinics, yeah, and did it as an incentive.
Wow.
Yeah, now, as of now, we do not have a date for November. So I feel kind of confident to say we probably won't have a November date, but there may be a December date. And I'll send out that notification.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Well, that's because 60 at one, that looks good. Well, that tells us what motivates people to get that. As if we didn't know that.
And it was a line.
It was a line.
It's a line.
All right. Anything else to come before the committee? Not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
And a second. We'll take a voice vote. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
No opposed? And we adjourn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.